In this section, we'll look at building an Excel chart, because we have all of this tabular data, and to help us make sense of it, we're going to look for some patterns in the data. We do see that the instantaneous speed is increasing. We can see that the amount of time that it took to go between tape marks seems to be decreasing. Here's almost 3 3/4 seconds to go the first 2 meters, and then to go the last 2 meters was less than a full second. So we're going to use the charting feature to look for those patterns. So we'll go up here and we'll click the charting tool, the chart wizard, and the type of charts that we always want to use in this course is the XY scatter. So I'll choose XY scatter and choose next, because the subtype is just a scatter plot. We don't want Excel to be predicting how the lines should go, because we're going to be looking for a best fit line. And press next. And I want to make sure that Excel knows that my data is going to be arranged in columns, in that each column will represent a series of data. And I'm not going to give it the data range just now, because Excel would make some choices for me that I'm not really wanting it to make as far as how it puts the data together. So instead, I'm going to go to the Series tab and build the series that I want Excel to chart for me. I click the Series tab, and now I will add a series. And a series in this case will be like our data trials, our runs. So click Add, and then in the name, I'll click here in the name, and the first one I'll call Trial 1 at 45 newtons. And now I need to tell Excel where to find the X values. Now be careful, don't click in this part of the window. That will cause some events that you'll have to undo later. So carefully get to the far right hand side of the window and click the little spreadsheet icon. And when you do that, the dialog box shrinks and gets out of the way, and we want to tell Excel where to find the X values for our chart. And since we're doing a distance versus time chart, we want the X values to be time. So I'll click in the first cell in trial 1 times that contains a time information, which is B3, and I'll drag down until I get to B8, which was the last trial. I let go of the mouse button and I'll press Enter. That has told Excel that the X values come from sheet 1 and come from cell B3 through B8, and the dollar signs in front, if you remember relative addressing from building the formulas, the dollar signs in front tell us that no matter what, it will always be B3 through B8, and they won't change those. The dollar sign locks in place. So now the Y values. I come over here all the way to the right hand corner, being careful not to click in the dialog box here, but to click on the menu tag at the end of the line, and tell it that the Y values I want are the distances. So I'll click and drag, holding the mouse button down until I've highlighted all the distances, and press Enter. And now you'll see in the little preview window of the chart that our information for trial number 1 is showing up on the graph. So I'll continue to add series for trial number 2 and the average. So we'll add trial number 2 at 45 newtons, and X values now will come from trial 2 column. Hit Enter. The Y values will come from column A again, the distances. And I'll hit Enter, and you'll see now we have 2 sets of data. I'll add another series, and this time the series will be, well, let's see, I'll just type AVG period average 45 Newton trials, because we'll have the 90 Newton trials also on the same graph. average 45 Newton trials. The X values will come from the average column that we built in an earlier segment. And the Y values, again, will come from the position column. We now have 3 sets of data, well, basically 2 sets of data on our average. And the reason for putting our average in is that Excel off the shelf is a little limited in what it can do with curve fitting, and so we're going to want to have it fit the curve to the average of those steps. So we will eventually want to put the 90 Newton trials onto the same graph, and we'll follow the same process of adding data series, and we would add trial number 1 at 90 newtons and trial number 2 at 90 newtons. So I'm just noticing that for consistency, I'm going to go back and edit this trial number 1 and to make it the same as the trial number 2, which I put the number symbol in. And now click next, and it allows me now to start putting some other necessary information on my graph, which Excel calls a chart. And I'm going to call this, let's see, the standard is to say the Y value versus the X, so this would be a distance versus time for a skateboard pushed with 45 newtons and 90 newtons total. No, I'm not going to call it total, I'm going to call it applied force. Now, click in the X values dialog box and tell it that the X values represent time measured in seconds, and that the Y values represent distance measured in meters. And I will click next. And the default setting is this will show up as an object in this first sheet, and that's what I want, so I'll click finish. And there's my chart. Now there's a couple of things we'll do to this chart to make it a little more printable. One is we'll right click somewhere away from any markings, just right click in the gray plot area, and ask Excel to format the plot area. And on the side that says area rather than borders, on the area I want to tell it none for the fill effect. And when I click OK, now the background has gone to just plain clear. So I'll move the chart across, and in the next segment we'll look at plotting a best fit